We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us try to be slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds, who wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days. Everybody is slave.
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad, the show where we hunt down and expose Nephilim shit. I am excited to let everyone know that we have, in fact, survived and are not zombies due to the October 4th, 2:20 p.m. emergency broadcast system, and we'll be sure to get into that. But before we do, I'd like to let everyone know that Top and I have just created a Twitter account, as well as Rumble, as well as a YouTube account for Nephilim Death Squad. So please, if you want to support the show, go ahead and follow and subscribe to those accounts. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven, and I am here with my guest, Top. Top, let them know who you are and where to find you.
What's up, Top Lops? I kind of want to just jump into this thing. Let's introduce our guest, and before I lose that thought, go ahead, man. Tell the people who you are, like they need to know.
I'm just a regular guy who likes to talk about interesting things. Juan from the Juan Podcast, tjojp.com is my website. And yeah, I'm just a regular guy, man. Nothing special. I just research.
It is weird because I have heard you for maybe like 2 years at least on like Tinfoil Hat and a number of other shows. And I really didn't have anything to say back then. But it is bizarre hearing you and talking to you now because I've been listening to you for quite a while. But I wanted to address the thing that David just like rolled in on with this.
I don't know if you guys can still hear me. We got a little bit of a internet issue.
Oh, no, we hear you. I'm just going to address what you said with the October 4th thing. I did put my phone in my Faraday box. I don't know what's going on. I know you can do all that, whatever you want. I was outside on the trampoline with my kids, no joke. And like I did it as one of these things like, fuck it, maybe. And then I was outside anyway. So I'm sitting on the trampoline and these guys are doing construction in my house. I sort of hear their phones going off and then the trees above my trampoline start to like buzz in unison.
Bro, get out of here with that.
I swear to fucking God. If I would have had my phone, I would have recorded it. They started to buzz in unison. All the cicadas in the trees started like going crazy. And I looked at my daughter and I was like, did you hear that? And she was like, yeah. She's like, it's like bees. There are a lot of bees. I was like, I got out the trampoline. I went to the contractor and I was like, hey, you hear that? And he's like, yeah, my phone's going off right now. And he shows it and boom, it goes off. So I was like, I don't know what the fuck that was, but I'm sort of glad that I put my phone in this Faraday box because I'm like, I don't know. I know
when you say buzzing, do you mean like the cicadas were buzzing or like a different sound accompanied with the cicadas?
It sounded like the trees were vibrating. And I was like, they're not vibrating. I know that there's cicadas and then you'll hear them off rhythm sometimes at night mostly, but like in unison. And I was like, yo, this is fucking weird, dude. It's weird. So something did happen. I don't know.
What about you, Juan? Do you have a Faraday box?
Are you going to plug like the promo? Like, are you selling the box? Like,
yeah, 10% off.
Right?
No, as a matter of fact, it's fucked up. We are, but I'm being dead ass. Like this is fucked up because again, you know what? No, don't even run the ad today. Don't even because now I feel like an asshole. But that did just happen, and I'm telling you, I was like I wasn't convinced at all.
So did you think something was going to happen?
I didn't know. No, I thought that. Listen, I'm the type of dude that I unplug my Wi-Fi router at night when I go to sleep. I don't need to be fucking microwaved, when I'm not at least using this shit. So I do believe in frequencies and stuff like that. We know that they're sending that shit over the air. How does it get here? I think that Wi-Fi will be like when we're older, it'll be like no smoking spots. We're gonna have like no Wi-Fi spots because they know they'll already like have pronounced the what this shit causes. So again, I feel like I'm just digging myself a grave here where everyone's like, it's
No, like,
crazy.
dude, man, like I read a lot of crazy stuff and right, part of the occult and like the esoteric realm, like magic and all this stuff. Like there's craziness there. I mean, but I feel like being part of this community, if you want to call it that, there's so much fear mongering, and I get it because it gets the clicks, it gets the views and all that stuff. But there's the mind is a powerful aspect, and when you have in unison people, right, those are the directed energy weapons. Like they direct everyone's energy. Shout out to Emily Moyer, where they focus everyone's intention in on one place. So when you have all these accounts and everybody making a conspiracy, not everything is a conspiracy, right? And I'm a skeptic, and this is why I'm here, like talking and researching, because I want to disprove some of the stuff that I've heard about. Like it started with religion for me, right? Like, why do we hear all the same story, and like why are symbols? Why do they even exist? Like, why do they speak to us not on like a superficial level, but like a psychological, spiritual level, right? So I'm a skeptic like anybody else, but when you have people pushing these agendas and the fear mongering, and then they just move on to the next thing. So nothing happened. Nothing was gonna happen. Now, I do agree with you. I do believe that there is things that the public aren't exposed to, such as advanced technology. And man, I'll even say that some of this advanced tech is magic. Like it's if you want to believe like the whole fallen Nephilim technology, all that narrative, I mean, I think that exists. So most definitely they use frequencies and waves. And dude, one time I was switching out my router. I was getting a new router. I unplugged my old router and I felt it like in my body. I felt the router turn off. Like I felt so there, and you're so used to this white noise all the time that you don't think anything of it. But when I unplugged it, like I felt it in my body. Like I felt something, shut off in my body. I'm like, that's been on like this whole time.
Let me clarify. Like what I said is exactly what I meant to say, but my deduction from it is not necessarily that they're like emitting some kind of wave to kill us, but
but that's really what they were saying, bro. That's exactly what, like, they're gonna be zombies. Like,
dude,
no.
it will kill. It's like all right, you took 3 aspirin. Yeah, it's gonna fuck your liver up. Like we know that. But what this felt like
Not
is like
medical
this
advice.
shit is not medical advice. No, this shit is always going through the air, but like on smaller waves, 1-to-1. If you're sending out like one giant message to everybody, it's possible that like whatever waves are being transmitted are like quite the bandwidth of waves, enough to make crickets react, which is like sort of like concerning. Like what is going on? I don't think it's like gonna activate people's V statuses or whatever. And who knows,
that was
whatever.
a lot of what people thought was going to happen, right? You ever see the movie Kingsman? Right.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
in the movie Kingsman, the main antagonist, he provides the general public with like a free phone, and the idea is that the phone's going to emit a frequency and it's going to make everybody incredibly violent. It's a great movie.
I'm pretty sure that
awesome
was
scene when it finally-
Zoolander.
Was that? I think they both kind of did something like that, right?
Yeah.
But what Top is saying about this constant bombardment of all these different things, I think he's probably right. We are going to look back in like 20 years and be like, oh yeah, overexposure to like Wi-Fi signal and things like that, it gave everybody ball cancer. And I couldn't help but think about when Juan is talking about the router going off and feeling it. It's almost like it sounds like, you remember the old TVs, like a tube TV? Like you knew that bitch was on when you walked into the room.
Yes.
And when you turned it off, it was like you couldn't put your finger on it, but something was a little bit quieter. It wasn't necessarily on a sound spectrum. It was like a vibrational spectrum. I guess that's the same thing, but like you could tell when you turn that TV off. So who the hell knows what all these things are doing? They're just turning us into like Swiss cheese, right? All these frequencies are passing through us and just destroying our bodies. But there was this idea that I only came across it like 2 days ago, right? This idea that the emergency broadcast system's going to go off and that, it's going to turn us to zombies. And I think probably what really happened there, because I am a conspiracy theorist, I look at everything, almost everything is like a psychological operation in my mind. I throw that terminology around so much that it doesn't even mean shit anymore. So it's like, who looked at the data and, number one, saw how effectively a social contagion works, right? Where it's aflame on Twitter. Everybody's talking about it. I jumped on to post a stupid poll, like, are you a zombie yet? Yes or no? And I noticed everybody else did. I mean, at the time that there was live spaces going where people were all in the same live space on Twitter, they were going to ride or die, kind of go down with the ship and die together. But I do think that it was probably an information grab. Like, I wonder, I see a lot of people, even in our chat, hey, Donut.
Look at this fearmonger, bro.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
That's the thing. You're right. And you're right, man. I'm sorry, Juan. I didn't mean to fearmonger because I hate that more than anything. Where it's like Sam would say, like, they're stealing your loosh. You know, it's just a straight up loosh jacking, like 9/11 or, you know, COVID. Man, and yeah, I don't want to contribute to that. But then I also feel like someone who's been abducted by an alien, and now I'm not allowed to talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're ashamed, and you should be ashamed. I think a little bit of shame.
And it's fine because, like, but I think that there's like this obsession with in our community, which isn't. It seems like it's much bigger than it is because we're in it all the time. But the amount of people that are in our community isn't like huge, right? There's a really small amount of people that are in it. But since we interact, it's like an echo chamber type of thing. And I think like they're so obsessed with wanting to bring forth the end. And right, a broken clock is right 2 times a day. So eventually when it ends, like it's, you know, like, oh, we were talking about it. It's like, yeah, what about the other 52 times that you were wrong and off about your predictions? But it's like people want to, like, there's something about, and I resonate with that too, because the first text that I started to read, like when I first got my Bible, the first book I read was the book Revelation, like the Apocrypha and the end of times, like this like almost like a mystical type of thing, or like, how is it going to end? Like, right, I think it's the gospel of one of the non-canonical gospels where the disciples are talking to Jesus and they ask him like, yo, you know, when is it ending? He goes, why are you asking me already? Have you already forsaken like the beginning, right? And then he says something cryptic like the ending will be where the beginning is, and and all this stuff, like some crazy alchemical, cryptic, allegorical thing. But I think it's like human nature to want to know where things, like a movie, we know where it ends, we know where it starts, and we have a cohesive story. But I think there's so many pieces missing of our existence and our reality itself. Like, reality is subjective, right? What we feel, what we see, what we interact with, like, that's subjective. And then the idea, like, we don't know where we came from. And then you have mainstream history, like, painting a picture that's obviously full of holes, but people still buy it regardless. I mean, that's there's something to be said there too. And I think it's just human nature to want to know, like, when is this gonna go, you know, tits up or whatever it is that they say. Like, you know, I want to know.
The other week, me and Raven, I think we brought up a bunch of times, like, we're playing a game with, you know, eternal things that have 0 time preference, but our time preference would be like somewhere in between 75 years. So we're trying to, like you say, like, when does it end? Where does it go? These other things, whatever's going on here since the beginning of time, they're playing the long game, and they've set like so many traps, like long game traps, that, like, how could we know? I've been here for 30 something years. Like, the fuck do I know? It's baffling to really wrap your mind on that.
Yeah, we were mentioning how you know, if you trace it back, and I know, Juan, that you've done a lot of research that brings you very far back in human history, and when you start to see a breadcrumb trail that is, you know, all the way back since the dawn of time and leads up to all of the events that are happening now. And I'm not saying that we're in the end times or anything like that, but I think human history up until this moment is all biblical, right? We're still going through it. It's not like the Bible was the past. Well, I mean, it's a record of the past, but that energy and that sort of mysticism around the human species is still there with us to this day. And so if the plan goes back that far, it makes you wonder who has the ability to play that long of a game. And we sort of were going back and forth with that on another episode. But what you were saying earlier, Juan, about all these missed dates, right? All the predictions. I sometimes wonder, because I've been looking at this for a long time, and it started when I was a teenager, my interests in sort of end time things and conspiracies and all this stuff. And so when you're young, I mean, I'm still dumb, but I was way dumber back in the day. And I fell for like every prediction in the book. Like, I thought Pac was coming back. I really thought Pac was coming back for like a long time, dude. I really swore. And then it's just, nothing burger after nothing burger after nothing burger. And sometimes I wonder, like, is that part of it? Like, is this a general raising of the public's level of anxiety? You know what I mean? Like,
Ultra,
can you,
bro.
yeah, can you destabilize a people by dangling this end times carrot in front of their face and you prime them? We're constantly getting primed. And I think the stress on the human psyche of being primed for something like the end of days, right? Like this moment where it's all going to pop off. We're all going to hear an EBS alert and we're going to turn into zombies. Like maybe you don't really buy it, but there's a part of you that tenses up. And when you do that to an entire society and you do it again and again and again, what does that do? What does that start to look like? Is that one of the reasons why you can look around on the internet and see no shortage of societal breakdown? Because there's a lot of reasons, whether they're political or racial or religious or all these different things, but it's part of it that we're just tensing up and then nothing happens. And then we're tensing up and then nothing happens. And you just keep doing that. We're going to fucking die. Like 5 years from now, the entire species is just going to die of a stroke.
That's if you buy into it, bro. Because so you're talking again. We're in it. We're in the trenches. We're in it. Us here, everyone watching, we're in it. But you know how many people have zero clue on what's going on? I mean, that majority of people who aren't interested in the topics that we're talking about is much greater than we think, right? So there's a large percent. Was the statistic like 85% of the population has no inner monologue? Like, what does that mean? Like, how many people don't think about what they're gonna say in their head and they just say it? Like, is that proof of NPCs? Is that proof of homunculus running around everywhere? Like, is that like, because that's a thing where people, what they're thinking they have to say, or they whisper it, right? Like they have to whisper it to themselves in a sort of way, and that's a real phenomenon. So I think that the amount of people who are working the grind 9 to 5, which I'm a part of it too, right? You have a family, have kids, have all this stuff. A lot of them aren't even paying attention to any of this stuff, and it's gonna hit them in the face when it gets here. It gets here, right? And I also think that some people do it on purpose to not stress themselves out, because what a life to live. Like if you're always constantly thinking about how it's gonna end. Like I think that's part of the MK Ultra, where if we are constantly bombarded with these ideas, we manifest it. We manifest this into existence. And I think that's where, again, the nature of reality we don't understand really, because if you get enough people on board with an idea, things start to happen. Things start to develop. And I think that's the dangerous part of it. Again, that's why I said directed energy weapons. We are the energy. We are the weapons. And when we all focus in on the Titan at the bottom of the ocean, what if we imploded it? You know what I'm saying? Because everyone and their mom was talking about it and focusing that intention. The media, right? The media was in there.
Dude,
the media was in.
How many dogmen do you think Tony Merkel has created with this show?
Dude, I mean,
it's like dogmen popping up like, the fuck gotta get here.
And that's part of it too, because if you get into this whole realm of possibilities and this whole realm of the imagination, right? The mundus imaginalis, which is something that I talk about, where you are able to open up portals that connect these, the mundus imaginalis is the world between God, source, and then reality. And there's like where the angels exist and everything. And according to the lore, portals open up from these two realms, and that's where you get the veil is thinner, and when people are focusing, I think books are portals. Like if you're reading something that's off, I think you can open up a portal. And even the occultists talk about things bleeding into our reality in these other realms, the universe B, the cliff off, whatever you want to call it. It's got a whole bunch of different names. But yeah, dude, by people thinking about it and they're manifesting it. Okay, they're bringing it into existence. In my opinion, I think there is a sort of aspect to this. I don't know if you want to call it paranormal or the occult. And I mean, that's why I love alchemy, because it takes all those concepts and it's shit. Because alchemy is like interdimensional. It's you're working on 4 different planes of existence simultaneously to essentially what you're trying to do is step out of space and time. I mean, the ideas and operations from that woo-woo thought developed chemistry. Okay, so these alchemists in their labs trying to find the elixir of eternal life, or trying to make a homunculus, or trying to do whatever, the operations from that led to chemistry. So the woo-woo leads to the science or seance or whatever you want to call it. And I think it's all the same. I mean, just because it changed name doesn't mean it hasn't changed. So when they throw in quantum physics, or they throw in theoretical physics, or whatever it is that they call it, all that's magic. You're working with forces that you don't understand, and you can kind of manipulate it to bend at your will sometimes, and sometimes you can't, right? So it's like sometimes CERN can locate the Higgs boson or whatever they're trying to find. Sometimes they can't. Why? Because it's right. What's the observer effect? Well, we don't know, but we know that matter reacts a certain type of way when it's being observed versus when it's not being observed. What does that mean? Does that mean that every atom is sentient and has consciousness? Like what does it mean? But we don't know, because we don't have answers to those questions. But how many dogmen do I think he's brought into existence? Probably quite a few. if I had to guess.
More than
That
one.
that's a kind of a great segue, right? Because we talked about earlier, we're the direct energy weapons, and then this whole observer phenomenon. It's like literally paying attention, directing your energy at an object determines its state, to some extent. If you're into quantum physics, that's above my pay grade. I'm not that smart, but I think that's a good segue to start to talk about what it is that you focus on, Juan, which is really, I said before that I've been in this for a long time, and I don't want to kiss your ass on a live stream, but I will a little bit.
It's all right.
You're one of the only people that I've found who focuses on alchemy, and it was something that I was peripherally aware of. It's like transmuting a metal into gold is the really surface level kind of definition of alchemy, or at least what it brings to people's minds when you mention it. But listening to you, I've learned that it's so much more. In a way, alchemy is almost interchangeable with the words. You said seance before, I almost said it. With the word science, in that science is the study of all things, and alchemy very much kind of goes in that direction too. Could you explain to people what it is that alchemy means to you, and maybe a little bit about what it's like to see the world through that lens, because you look at everything through the lens of alchemy, or at least on your show, that's the impression that I get.
It's funny you bring this up, because I'm reading a book on Fulcanelli by Patrick Revere. It's Fulcanelli and his true identity revealed, and I've been studying it and taking notes, and they said something in here that is going to fit my description, because to be honest, I don't know. And here at the bottom says, still when all passes and returns, why I wonder if one acquires the habit of thinking about the mystery of things. If to some extent one gets into the habit of probing the occult, one clearly realizes that everything transforms, acts, influences, and I can't say that word right now. So it reciprocates that, right? So influences, depending upon the atmosphere, which continually modifies itself at every moment. And that, to me, right there, this concept of the more you look into it, the more it changes. And to me, when I first got into like the esoteric and the occult, alchemy was always there, but I never understood it. I never could. You can Google it all you want. You can read all these books about it, and you're never going to get a straight answer. And the reason for that being is because, again, the more you look into these concepts, to me, they morph. But alchemy in particular, because it's a psychological, biological, transcendental, like metaphysical, physical concept, it's all those things and more. And there's also an aspect to it where it's whatever it means to you. And that's the secret of alchemy, right? You first have to purify yourself and look within in order to achieve the magnum opus, the great work. And you can't achieve that until you've purified yourself, because there's a biological transformation going on within the alchemist. And I think that we're all alchemists, because we're transmuting the ideas of people real time as they listen to this. they're connecting dots that they wouldn't have otherwise connected. So we're speaking, things that are causing change. There's a transference of energy. Anything is, right? If you go back to the origins of money, that's alchemical, right? The Knights Templar who invented the modern day banking system, who were in touch with entities outside of space and time, allegedly, were, right? That story, that lure, helped them create the modern day banking system, which essentially is you deposit money here, get it out over there with this little card, and then they realize, like, hey, we can charge people to let them borrow other people's money. They're not all going to take it out at the same time. So bada bing, bada boom, you got the modern day banking system. And they say that the alchemists, that the Knights Templar had the alchemical secret, and that's how they were able to fund all of these cathedrals and all these different things. And within those cathedrals, according to Fulcanelli, they put in the blueprints of how to create this Philosopher's Stone. Now, the Philosopher's Stone, the Elixir of Life, the Divine Androgen, the Magnum Opus, the Homunculus, which are all aspects of alchemy, we're thinking of them as like the Philosopher's Stone, a stone. Well, what if it's not a stone? What if it's like a reaction?
Ark of the Covenant? Would the Ark of the Covenant fall underneath those, like this banner as well?
So the Ark of the Covenant, yeah, it was like I think they had relics, so they were protecting relics. Now the Ark of the Covenant, I'm not too familiar with the lore there, but like the Holy Grail, they talk about it being, is it a Grail, or was it a bloodline, and the actual Grail is a person and a lineage? So we're thinking of the Philosopher's Stone, right? But what if it's not a stone? What if it's a reaction in space and time? What if it's a deconstruction of reality, and it's veiled under the symbolism of a stone? You get what I'm saying? So there's so many layers to pull apart, and it's all those things that we just talked about and more. Okay. And I think that, right, because the alchemists were a secret society, essentially, is what they were. And they regarded this specific knowledge that only a certain few could have access to it. So it goes back to the same exact people that we always talk about, where they're like, whenever we say they're trying to control, they this, they them, whatever, like they were part of that group too. Because who are you to determine what knowledge is sacred or not? That's gnosis. And I think that's why the Gnostics were wiped out, because they were like, yo, what they don't want to tell you is that you can achieve divinity yourself, right? You don't have to go to a church every Sunday. And again, I'm not bashing anyone's religion or anything like that. I consider myself a Christian. You don't have to go to church every single day and pay the man, because it's a brokered experience. Now is what it is. They're like, you can do that on your own. And the church was like, we don't like that. They have to come to us, and they have to be good little people. They have to pay their tithings every single week, and we're going to put in a good word for you with God. And maybe if you're good, he might just save you a seat. The Gnostics are like, no, bro. Like, we can achieve that ourselves. And gnosis is whatever sacred knowledge is to you. However you interpret it. And again, it's a very free-flowing, hippie and love type of thing, but I think there's something to be said about that. And usually I've recognized throughout history that all the people who speak some sort of truth and are censored and are put down and eliminated, they were usually onto something, right? And they were preaching things that the establishment didn't appreciate. Therefore, they were a threat of some kind. But yeah, alchemy, it's a lot of different things, and I'm still trying to figure that out. I still don't know, but yeah, the base level, turning base metals into gold, the more philosophical, spiritual, turning yourself into a better being, whatever that means at the end of the day. And then there's the more interdimensional, esoteric aspect of it, where it's like you're deconstructing reality itself, and you're able to step outside of it and manipulate it from the outside. So I think that's what a lot of the elites are striving for, right? What do all the elites want? They want more money. Well, alchemy checks that box. You make infinite gold glitch, right? You got all the gold. It's like, well, we want more power. Okay, well, we're going to manipulate these symbols where we're going to manipulate the media. We're going to put these symbols in front of people and manipulate them with that. Physical symbols as well as metaphysical, right? Like more symbolic. Because again, there's that's that aspect of, you have the practical alchemy where you're moving things around in matter, right? We're moving things around, boom, boom, boom. And then you also have, you're playing with the symbols through whatever other means that aren't physical, if that makes any sense. So it's all that and more. And that's what I love about it, because you can focus on the practical alchemy all day long. Then you can focus on the spiritual alchemy all day long. And there's so much to pull from that. And it's also a large section of history, which also has something to say, where it's like, if there was nothing to it, because this is my other like black pilled part, where it's like, maybe there was nothing to it. These dudes were just trolls. There is no secret, right? There's nothing on the other side. And when we die, we're just gone and that's it. But then there's like this, you see a reoccurring pattern of, again, all the same symbols throughout all different religions, all different civilizations. So I think there's something more to that. And maybe you were talking about frequencies earlier. Like maybe you have to be attuned to a certain frequency to see that. Like my dad died 4 times. He had a heart attack like 2 or 3 years ago. Died 4 times. First thing I asked him when I saw him was like, how was it, bro? Like, how was the other side? Dude, I've never met anybody who's died 4 times. He flatlined 4 times, was out for 45 minutes.
Wow.
First thing he says to me is like, I don't remember anything. Like, bro, you were gone 4 times. And you don't remember absolutely, he's like, nothing. Well, maybe it wasn't his time to go because he's obviously still here. Maybe there's not a spiritual bone in my dad's body, so maybe he's not attuned to the frequency that he needs to be, right? So maybe it's all the stuff that they put in people nowadays, right? Certain people take certain things, which is fine because we have free will and we can do whatever. It's a free country, we can do that. Or again, the phones, the 5G, the whatever hertz, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's that, and that'll suppress people a certain type of way. You know, there's talks of auras and all this stuff, but I don't know. I think that there's a lot more to reality that they don't teach us in school, and I'm still trying to find, out of all the hours, out of all the things I've read, I still don't really know what's going on, you know, and see, that's the beauty of it.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking about like, why would they change the general hertz of music from 432 to 440, knowing that like 440 will cause this like kind of like anxiety inducing behavior, whereas 432 is a lot more relaxing, actually does have health benefits. It's a conscious decision, whereas like Bob Marley, when you look at his music and what he's trying to reflect and say, all his shit is recorded in 432, which is like almost like a half step down. Like my Martin over there is tuned to 432, like standard, because I like the way it sounds. But like if you really think about that, it's like they're doing it for a reason. But it's all drops in a bucket, right? Like a little bit of sand here, 1 grain here, and maybe this will break your back. Like when we were just talking about the frequencies earlier, it's not going to kill you, but it's like, here's a little bit more. Here's a little bit more, and making like humanity heavier in a way, like you're saying. If we're talking about like how people are vibrating, if you're vibrating at a high level, but you got a crazy heavy ass blanket on you, it's like, well, maybe that's kind of where they need you to do whatever the fuck they're doing next, or
smothering you.
I don't like. Yeah. It's just constant. It's constant bombardment, and again, even talking about it is bombardment because it's like to the spirit, right? To their soul, we're like dragging you down, and that's not my intention here. But I think if you're aware of it, possibly you could just like understand what I'm saying, and not be dragged down to it too much.
Yeah,
what comes to
I
mind
don't think
too
that ignorance is bliss, though, and I think that being sometimes, like, I'll be honest, not saying I'm the most enlightened being that there is, but sometimes I wish I could be as, I guess it's bad to say, but as ignorant as some people who don't. I can't have normal conversations with people anymore. All my friends are in the computer for a reason, okay? So if I'm at a party, I can't talk to people that are going, you know what alchemy is, bro? You ever heard of a homunculus? Like,
you know that meme, Juan, where the dude's in the corner at the party, He's got like his little hat on, and it's like
none of these people know what a homunculus is.
Alchemy.
Yeah.
No, listen,
so,
I was like that. I was like that for years, dude. I lived in New York, had a house, had a very good job and all that. So they're doing construction on my house here. Moved to Florida.
That was a vibrator.
Yeah. It's the 5G waves. But I felt like that for a long time, man, where I'm like I'm very serious and like headstrong about everything and like kind of like hard. I felt like I was hard to have a conversation with. Then I kind of just embraced the comedy side of it because, you know, it's such a tragedy, like what's happening, that I can look at it and be sorrowful over it or just laugh because it really is hilarious in so many ways. Like if you were the people pulling the strings and you were like, let's make their kids gay, like that's objectively hilarious. If it was a Seinfeld episode, I'd be like, boom, boom, boom. You know,
what if that's what the alert was trying to do today? Just make everybody a little bit gayer.
Can't make me any more gay, brother.
I was gonna say we're maxed out on gay, bro. That's it.
Yeah. I don't know.
You
maybe.
know, I want to toss this to you guys because Top is very into music, and Juan, you're into all the sort of the symbolism of things, and alchemy is heavy in symbolism. And the way that I came into all of this when I was younger was noticing these symbols constantly inundating music videos in particular. Hollywood certainly, but it's like when you have a 3.5 to 4 minute video, it seems like they just try to squeeze as much shit as they possibly can in there. And so when I was a kid, I was seeing all of this, and the only explanation that I've ever gotten, or rather when I was a kid, the only explanation I had was it's sort of this thing that they're doing to add some mystique to their brand. You know, like Jay-Z is only putting all this shit in his music videos because he wants to create lore, essentially, was, you know, and I'm doing them a favor by adding all those extra words. They were just like, they just do it for fun, which is kind of a shit excuse. And especially when the symbols are of the same nature, right? There's always a Baphomet. There's always an inverted star or pentagram. There's always an all-seeing eye. You know, there's a lot of mirrors and goat heads and all these different things. And I would be interested in hearing, you know, because a lot of people go, well, those symbols are the symbols of, you know, this dark cabal that's running everything behind the scenes. But I would be interested in your thoughts and Top's thoughts on what do you think this achieves? You know, it's a weird kind of priming to show us these things that I guess affect us maybe on a subconscious level, or they, you know, because a lot of people, despite being exposed to the same media throughout all these years, like you said, 85% of people don't have an internal dialogue. So let's just say 85% of people don't even see this shit. So if it's going over that many people's heads, what do you suspect is the point of just inundating us with these symbols that most people don't even notice?
I think that a lot of these artists there's two sides of it. There's might be the ones that use it consciously knowing what they do. And then I think there's the ones that you just use it to be edgy. I think that there is that aspect of it. And recently I had a friend of mine who interviewed the son-in-law of Anton LaVey, and he brought me up in the conversation how I believe that the elites are using these symbols to manipulate the masses. And the guy pretty much didn't call me directly an idiot, but that line of thinking, which was idiotic. So I got called an idiot, not directly by the ex-son-in-law of Anton LaVey, which
that's kind of cool.
That's a pretty cool flex. I can't flex at any party that I go to, but I can flex to my friends on that are in the computer. They don't even know, bro. I'm in the corner. It's like, I got dissed by Anton LaVey's ex-son-in-law, like whatever. So I think there's that aspect of it. But if you can really go a whole bunch of different ways with this, because if you believe that maybe this reality is some sort of, right, the cliche now is like, oh, it's a simulation, it's a computer simulation. Maybe not a computer simulation. Let's say it's an organic simulation. And let's say that certain things resonate more in that simulation, in that reality, more than others. Some vibrate more than others. And I think that you can, right, Carl Jung, the Jungian approach of it, it's like these symbols can help you unlock certain things within yourself, right? Where it can help you achieve more, essentially. So by these alchemists, because they're also talking about symbols, and the reason that the alchemists spoke in symbols and allegories and all these things was to occult the truth or whatever they were trying to put out, because it was dangerous at that point in time to put it out, and they were essentially being hunted down. You could die essentially at this time by having and possessing this knowledge. So, hey, what a better way than to just paint a whole bunch of plates and occult what we're trying to say. But hey, hashtag if you know, you know, and the ones that, right, the uninitiated don't have, have zero clue. They don't even know what that means. So I think that there's a combination of two. And dude, like, I get emails all the time of people that are like, I got tricked into joining the Freemasons, or I got tricked into joining XYZ. I thought I could get more knowledge than what I was able to get, and it's a scam. And I go, is anything secret anymore? I think that the regular person, how Michael Hoffman says, is more initiated than the actual people in these secret societies through, like, look at a lot of people game. Look at Assassin's Creed and how occult that game in itself is. Like, how wild, how much stuff, like, people were telling me about it, and until I looked into it myself, it's like they're talking about some crazy Illuminati stuff in there and like all this craziness, and it's like the regular gamer is more susceptible, more there's more symbolism put in front of him than the actual people in these secret societies, Freemasons, whatever, insert your group of choice here. So there's something to be said about that. And I don't think they even need to hide it anymore, because it's all, and to me, my personal opinion is, and this is why it's so important to really know what you're consuming, because it's, to me, I've learned through my occult studies, it's about the occulted scaffolding, the intention behind things. So let's say that you can flash out an eye, you can flash out a pyramid, you can flash out all these things, but what went behind the charging of that sigil or that mandala or whatever? That's the important part. And I think that's where the esoteric knowledge really goes into, because if you're focusing on the exoteric, what they're presenting outward to everybody, it's going to affect those who it affects, and those that are able to, Paracelsus calls it, the magicians are the ones that are able to turn their souls into mirrors and reflect the light back. And I've been on this kick lately because, right, the Illuminati, the enlightened ones, right, the Lucifer, the light bringer, there's this obsession with this light. And I think that the mysteries, it's about light. Now, I don't know if it's a symbolic light or an actual physical light, but if you really think about it, I think it's both. I think it's, alchemy is the worship of fire, essentially. They were worship, and fire is kind of sentient in itself. It's got a consciousness of itself. It's, right, the purification through fire. And we just had the Maui fires and all these things. So fire has like a spirit of its own, right? Like it'll go places. And I think there's something to be said about that, because if you think about the MK Ultra that we're being subjected to, this mind control every single day, well, what's it from? From the light, from our little scrying mirrors here, from the light of our of our computer screens that we're surrounded with every day, right? It doesn't have to just be frequencies. It could be the actual light, the media, the movies that we're susceptible to. And it's alchemy,
all that
because
is frequencies, man.
Like exactly. Anything, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all an alchemical process reaction. So it's a combination of these symbols, but the occulted scaffolding that goes in behind that, if you look into anything, like quite literally, I do this all the time. I'll do like the occult origins of whatever. And the technology was brought forth because they wanted to prove either the existence of God or deity or spirit or something metaphysical. So they're like, all right, let me just see if I can manifest it in this thing. It's like, oh, dude, the guy, that invented the supercomputer, he was talking to elves under his house. Dude, don't worry about that. He was going underground in these tunnels that he was digging. He was talking to elves, and they also helped him solve problems. The guy, the father of the modern day computer, he tried to summon the devil one time in his life. You're going to judge him for that one time? Oh, he was also hanging out with guys from the OTO and all these. Dude, don't even worry about that. There's nothing to that, okay? There's nothing. So it's like, if you look, you're going to find.
Have you heard of, what's his name from You Conspiracy? You interviewed him.
Paul.
David.
Paul,
yeah, so
of Understanding Conspiracy on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's got that theory about the Nephilim being like the clowns being
yeah.
descendants of Nephilim. Yeah, But one of the things he said was that like after the flood, how some of them got trapped in, or maybe they were banished to this other dimension. Do you think that all these elves or whatever beings you're seeing on the other side are these Nephilim that are just giving this technology, these ideas, or what do you think?
I think Nephilim is another name for them. I think that they go by a bunch of different names. And if you trace back the origins of alchemy, it actually came from the Watchers or the Nephilim. It actually descended from them and through the lineage of Noah. Noah was one of the greatest alchemists of all time in his lineage. And so what I think is going on is when they were banished, right? When these Nephilim were wiped out, they were pissed. And energy can't be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed. So when they got transformed, that's how we get these spirits, demonic entities, etc., that are existing in this other dimension. Essentially, is what it is. Like this place where they can kind of sort of interact with our reality, but not really. So they're on that other side. And right before they got wiped out, they taught, right, the daughters of men the secrets. Those secrets were alchemy. And I think it was Joel. I was doing an episode with Joel, or I forgot who I was podcasting with, but he came up with the whole thing. It's like, well, what if that was intentional? Like they knew that they were going to be wiped out because they're these, right, interdimensional entities that probably had knowledge to things to come, right? Divinity, right? They're divination. They were able to divinate into the future and like, yo, we're about to get wiped out. So let's teach these secrets to the daughters of men. And that ties into the homunculus lore because through alchemy, through the arts, you make the homunculus. Well, some scholars talk about how the homunculus is actually an artificial demon or a vessel, right? And there's also the idea of the alchemist becomes a demon while making the homunculus. So it's like this really weird concept. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the first alchemist, Zosimos of Panopolis, one of the oldest alchemists that we have recorded history from.
What was his name?
Zosimos of Panopolis.
Just going to interrupt you. He struggled on the word. It was an R word. I forget whatever he said, but just rattled that off like no problem.
Like nobody's business. That was
No
easy,
problem.
bro. Zosimos
of Panopolis.
God damn,
Okay,
bro.
got you.
So
That's a dope ass name.
That's a dope ass name, right? So
He probably wore a
Zosimos
cape.
of Panopolis from the 2nd or 3rd century. He is the alchemist that we have the oldest records for. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he was obsessed with the books of Enoch. So he was writing about Enoch and the idea of the Watchers. And the Nephilim had a book which was named Chemi. And this book that they wrote all their secrets in, they passed it on to man. And that's how we get alchemy. Okay, because from this sacred, Al is, right, Allah, sacred, El, etc., etc. So Al, the sacred science, Chemi. So again, there's this whole lore and this whole mythology behind the origins of alchemy, and the homunculus plays a crucial role into it because it's like, did they give this tech before they were wiped out in order to reincarnate later on? Right? Like, so that they had a vessel to inhabit. So it's like all these alchemists are literally doing the devil's work, and they're letting these entities into our reality, into our existence, because if you follow the lore, the homunculus, when it's set out into the wild, it becomes a mythological creature. It becomes a giant. It becomes gnomes, elves, and all this stuff. And that's directly from Paracelsus talking about that. That's the father of toxicology, writing about giants, gnomes, homunculus, and all this stuff. So again, very influential people who we have toxicology, like literally the field of toxicology, the field of mining too. He actually did a lot for mining. His family was one of the first mining families. There's a lot of stuff that we use in surgery today came from this Paracelsus guy who was very weird. He was a weird guy. He was a really weird guy. And from his crazy, he is the typical like mad scientist, right? The archetype of the mad scientist in the lab trying to, right? It's alive. Like that whole idea really, I would say came from Paracelsus as like this hermit alchemist in the, right? He always carried around a sword with him. And, yeah, like it's just, he has a really fascinating history. But from that dude, we have all this other serious stuff. So like how I mentioned at the beginning, from the operations of alchemy, them trying to like achieve this woo-woo type of thing, we have chemistry and like the actual breakdown of elements, the periodic table and all those things where they were essentially also working with those same elements. And I mean, there's something to be said there. I think there's, like I said, there's something more woo-woo to reality. But at the end of the day, it comes back to that occulted scaffolding, like the intention that went behind whatever you're trying. So if you're conducting alchemy, just know that, yeah, there's the good parts about like spagyrics where you're able to make antidotes and make medicine and all these different things where you're extracting things from plants, mixing it together. That's part of alchemy too. But there's also the part of like, hey, maybe these Nephilim gave this tech to the daughters of men as like a fail-safe. Like a dead man switch, like, yo, if we get out, it's all right. They got us. They're gonna be messing with this stuff. They're like, they can create gold. Well, what if that's like just a byproduct of that, like the exoteric?
Do you think that the AI that we're working with right now would you consider that to be a homunculus of some kind? Because it seems like whatever information and technology we were given in the recent years are all building to that. Whatever this AI thing is that can do everything, you know, from the basic calculator. Once we started using one of these things to calculate, it all leads up to AI that can kind of tell you anything. Is that demonic?
I think if anything, AI is a sort of golem, and the difference between a golem and a homunculus, they're both artificially created beings through magic, essentially, is what it is. The golem is born fully grown, and the homunculus can grow into a thing. But the difference between the golem and the homunculus really is one is also created through like word magic, and from like the ground, from clay or whatever you want to call it, and one is created from the seed of man. Right? Use your imagination. And the golem is programmed to do one thing. So again, like this Terminator story, we have the Frankenstein story where what happens? Well, his creation goes out of control. Well, the golem story is essentially the same thing. And the golem fits more of that AI, cybernetic, Terminator type of thing where we brought it into existence to, right, 16th century Judai Rabbi Lowe. The stories were that they were trying to protect this Jewish ghetto. And this rabbi, and again, there's various versions of the story, creates this golem in Prague from the ground. And the ground in Prague is magical. It's got the prima materia because there is moldavite in the ground from a meteorite that crashed in there, and it spread the moldavite everywhere. And so he creates this golem to protect the ghetto that Rudolph II was trying to take them away and harm them and stuff. But then one night he forgets to erase the letters that he put on the forehead of this golem, and the golem goes on a rampage, and he just starts offing everyone, starts destroying everything until he's able to put it under control. And some of the stories, the golem is growing bigger and bigger when the rabbi is able to clean its forehead, right? So every night he would erase a letter, and I always get him. It's like from Amet to Met, and one means life, the other one means death. So it's like the rising from the ashes, Phoenix, it's reborn every single day. One night he just forgot to erase one of the letters, and it stayed alive. It stayed up. And so in some of the stories, when he's able to erase the letter, it falls on him, it kills him. And then in other stories, he's just able to put it under control, and they take its body and they put it in the attic of this, I think it's some church or something, whatever they call their churches. And it's supposedly still there till this day. No one's allowed to go up there. But so you have that archetypal Frankenstein story. Your creation goes out of control, which is what everyone is really afraid of now with the AI. It's like, oh, it's going to take our jobs. It's going to become sentient. It's going to do all these different things, right? It's like, me personally, I don't think so, because from what I've learned from these techno wizards is that the AI is only able to do what you give it power to do, right? But I also believe that technology itself is a sort of gateway, not just for like the AI, but for entities outside of space and time, like unintelligible forces.
The disembodied spirits of the Nephilim.
maybe if you want, yeah, you can, or the elder gods or the great old ones, whatever you want. Insert your entity or deity of choice here. And that's, so I think it serves as a portal, or quite literally, I mean, we're on a portal right now. Whenever you type in, you know, the World Wide Web, you're entering a portal, you're entering a different dimension. And right, the internet was created at CERN. Well, CERN, what are they trying to do? They're trying to open up portals to other dimensions.
Dude, they're just making Higgs boson particles.
No, so I actually made a connection with Crowley and CERN because, again, I'm sure these are all coincidences. There's nothing to this, but all these occultists of all time, like the most infamous ones, right? Crowley being one of them. I hate Crowley. They were trying to either bring forth an age of some sort, like the Aeon of Horus or the Aeon of Mot, or whatever they were trying to do. You have Parsons with the Scarlet Woman, the Whore of Babylon, also trying to incarnate it into reality. So they're all about bringing forth, which is very alchemical, because if you look at alchemical plates, they're pulling down the planets. They're putting the planets in vessels. They're deconstructing reality and quite literally bringing forth the apocalypse, Ragnarok, whatever it is. And John Dee and Edward Kelly, also in the 16th century, they were being talked to by these entities on the other side. And these entities on the other side were also focused on that, on bringing forth a new world, quite literally a new world order, a new world religion. And they were giving them the tools to be able to bring forth this change. So were those entities trying to break into our existence in some sort of way? And as long as you align everything up, it's like the Faustian Pact. I'll give you this. I need those booty cheeks and your soul. It's like, which do you want to give me first, the booty cheeks or your soul? And it's like, oh, damn, fine. I'll give you my soul first, take the cheeks later, right? I mean that quite literally, because they part of the John Dee and Edward Kelly lore is that they had to swap wives because the angels told them. So there's something weird there too. But
that's like
back
that,
to
like in Hollywood where they all bang each other's wives, and it's like, who's the son of this one, Justin Trudeau, and she's like, damn, they might, yeah, this is probably still doing this.
There's something
Yeah.
to the old Eye of Horus, if you know what I mean, the old portal, the old brown eye. There's something to that there, and there's also a lot of weird history that you can dive down in regards to that. But Crowley also used Enochian magic, which was what John Dee and Edward Kelly were using to talk to these other entities. And I think that they were trying to, again, open either themselves up as a sort of portal for these things to come into, or open up an actual portal. And I linked this guy, his name was Michael Millings Crowley, who was working at CERN. Now, this guy, in 1947, the same year that Crowley died, he added a second Crowley to his name. And I did a whole breakdown of this. So I'm sure that's just a coincidence. So he was named Michael Millings Crowley. Why would you add a second Crowley to your name the same year that the Crowley died? And this guy
That's definitely not as cool as the other guy's name.
Yeah, no. Zosimus. And this guy wasn't just a regular guy at CERN. He ended up helping develop CERN to like where it's at now, essentially. And there's one important aspect that's important to all this, that he was essentially one of the fathers of touchscreens. So touchscreens, as we know it today, he helped bring that forth. So what I'm insinuating is that these magicians or these occultists, whatever, they continue their work even after they've been gone. Similar to the Nephilim, they're still working on the outside skirts of reality, and they're able to maybe influence and possess people in some sort of, maybe they had the secrets, and that is the secret where you're able to be immortal, which is part of alchemy too, and kind of manipulate people from the outside. And maybe those voices that we hear in our heads there might be more to that. Maybe it might not be us. Maybe the people who can't hear their inner monologue are actually the good guys, and we're the ones that are messed up, because what are those voices? Like, who are those voices? What are ideas? Where do ideas come from? And ideas aren't always good. So again, there's
the muses, right?
Yes, exactly. So I think that he's continuing his work and was able to continue some of his work, even though he's already passed on, if you will, if he ever did pass on.
that lends itself to like this idea that it's not original, but I used to play in the church, like play guitar, and at one point it kind of dawned upon me. It was like, you too, yeah. It dawned upon me that it's like we're not playing on our on our home turf here. If you buy that, like, you know, when they say Lucifer walked, he had like these tendrils and tassels, and he's like basically made a beautiful sound. And some people say he was the first musician, and I kind of believe that because I go into the realm of like, you know, vibration, frequency, and that's really all that the perception of that is music. What we're doing is alchemy. We're forming chord shapes and harmonies and different things like that, but we're not playing on our home turf. This is like very like it's alchemy. It's alchemy, and it's like a door that we've opened, and it's a seed that he's left there, that Lucifer has left, and said, let's see what these people do with it. Kind of like, you know, the godfather of the touchscreen. He kind of left this premature stuff, and he's like, it's going to grow into something. And it's like, I think it could be bad, it could be good, but it's a very dangerous game and a thin line that we walk with these technologies and ideas and stuff like that.
This plays into what you asked me earlier, right? Shout out to Tony Merkel, where I talked about the Mundus Imaginalis. Well, one of the technologies to tap into the Mundus Imaginalis, and I think this is why we're bringing these things into right, that we're manifesting these things. One of the technologies to access that other realm, which is autonomous, which exists on its own, that gushes forth from the imagination of man, is through scrying. What are you doing when you're essentially scrying into a black mirror every single night? So what is that? Is that amplifying your thoughts and your ideas, and you're maybe pulling things out of this other imaginary realm? Because there's something about the imaginary that still kind of sort of exists, but not really, because if you think about the mind and how that works, you're able to go other places in your mind, but you're still here. When you dream, you were there, but not really there. So there's something to be said. When you wake up, we expect to be the same person. Are we the same person? When we dream, do we leave some of ourselves in this other reality? Right? You're talking about waves and delta and theta and all that does stuff. Like, I think that there's something to be said of, like, you know, when I stumbled across this, I have this other show called the Occult Book Club with Paranoid American, and we try and find the most obscure books that we can find that have been essentially lost to time, and we read them, we give you the cliff notes of it. And we found this book from the 17th century by this guy with two first names, Gabriel Daniel. There's really not a lot of information on him, and he was talking about how René Descartes essentially had discovered the technology to project his consciousness into another realm. And they were able to, that book from 1694 is the first time that they ever used outer space in the sci-fi sense. Now, I know some people think space is fake and gay, but that's besides the point. But the idea that René Descartes had, right, learned to project his consciousness out of his body, that's fine, right? They were learning in other realms. Maybe that was the secret. Who knows? But there was an important aspect, because back at the body, there was the thing that would inhabit the body. And I've dubbed it the Cartesian homunculus, because there was what they described as a little black Moor, a little black entity that would enter your body. And that little entity would just do the bare minimum for you. It would brush your teeth, it would eat for you, it would do your chores. But there was one important aspect. There was one thing that you couldn't do with that little black Moor, and that was have a deep conversation with it. Now, I don't know how many people nowadays you can't have a deep conversation with that feel superficial. And 85%. I've seen this concept. There's a lot of people you can't have a deep conversation with. And this concept, I've seen it in a show from Amazon. It's called Peripheral. And I don't want to spoil it for people, but essentially they're able to jump from dimensions and realities. And when you're gone from one reality and you're in the other one, something, they call it a thumb, takes over your body and does whatever, you know, it'll breathe for you. It'll sit down for you. It'll do the bare minimum. And I think that they take, right, these concepts from these books that are obscure. Like, me and Thomas have the only video on YouTube about it. Like, how many people are even, I wonder when the last time anyone ever read that book was, or even knows it exists. So again, very obscure thing, but I think there's secrets that are, and I think we stumbled across a grimoire actually Like, and a grimoire is pretty much a book of spells, and it's a story. But I've learned from reading occultist work that they occult truth with stories, because there's something powerful about that too. Taking the imaginary and the real and transmuting it together.
That's, that's why Stephen King is. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Stephen King is a occultic kind of dark arts dude, I think.
Yeah.
But
I
did want to say that we were just talking about shows, and I know that I've been wanting to say this. I'm like, I got to tell Juan about this. There's a show on Apple TV. It's called Changeling, and I don't want to spoil it, but there's constant mention of like Crowley and things like that, and it has to do with, you know, transmutation, and there's a lot of talk about the gods and everything. It's a really cool story. I don't want to spoil it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you. You should check it out. I think it's right up your alley. I was watching it and I was like, fucking Juan would love it.
I don't want anything up my alley, but thanks for the heads up, bro.
Well,
I've heard about it.
It's good, dude. It's really good. One of the things I wanted to say before we get to, because we have a segment called Nephilim Shit, where we just kind of react to things, and I'd like to show you some videos, but I know we don't have you for long, so I wanted to kind of pick your brain, if you can give us the audience an idea of this. One of my favorite things about you is that you look at things on multiple levels. So it's a literal thing, but it's a symbolic thing, but it's an alchemical thing, and one of the things that you laid out that I really enjoyed, and I think the audience would too, is and you don't have to go into a lot of depth, but this Titan Submersible. I believe it was you that started connecting it to this idea of this entity that's associated with Solomon. Am I right in there? That's about the most favors that my memory will do me there. But I thought it was really interesting because you were looking at the submersible in that layered way that I just described. And while the rest of the world was just looking at this high anxiety situation that was filled with all kinds of weird, you know, kind of, is this government hiding things from us? It went off. But your take was really interesting. Do you think you could tell us a little bit about what are some of the significant aspects of the Titan Submersible that you found compelling?
It was all a joke, bro. What I was actually doing was doing meme magic, and I put a meme out because I was making fun of people focusing on it. And then it turns out, right, like that got a whole bunch of comments and a whole bunch of retweets. And then I'm like reading the comments and I was like, oh man, there's actually something to this. But I related the Titan Submersible to Solomon's Shamir, and the Shamir, again, back to King Solomon, could have potentially had the alchemical secrets from his dad, King David. And the Shamir is described as a worm that helped him build the temple, right? There was 5 people on the submersible. The Shamir has 5 eyes on it. And it's also described as either a worm or a substance, which was weird because, again, I mentioned earlier about the Philosopher's Stone. It could have also been a substance, or it could have been a reaction in space and time. So maybe the Shamir is alluding to the Philosopher's Stone, occulted with the appearance of a worm, right? And essentially what I ended up doing was I ended up posting this meme that I did. I had posted it first. I deleted it. I put my watermark on it, and then I posted it again because I was like, whatever, like at least I'll get some credit. Then I saw other people recreate it without my watermark on it. They would take the Shamir and then they would put the submersible next to it, and they're like, oh, what's going on? Then there was some other people who actually used my thing, and they gave me, they would give me a shout out. But I was trying to make fun of people focusing on this event, and then it ended up like I tripped down the rabbit hole, and I was just like hitting every branch on the way down. But essentially what I think was going on is, again, one of these alchemical rituals where they put these symbols out there subconsciously, and when I really peeled the layers apart, it was connected all the way back to the Bohemian Grove, and how our boy, I already forgot his name, but the dude that was in charge of it, his daddy was in the Bohemian Grove. He was a frequent guest at the Bohemian Grove. So it's like, are these people put on the world stage as some sort of either sacrifice? Did these people actually pass how they say they did? Were there actually people on that submersible? Was this all a ritual? What were they actually distracting us from? So when you start to peel all these layers back, it's like there's symbols on top of symbols on top of symbols. And I found that out the hard way. But yeah, bro, it started with a meme, and it just comes to show you how powerful mimetic magic and mimetic occultism is, where it took it, right? I went on tinfoil hat. I even talked to Sam about it. I blew his brain about it. And I was just like, I'm here by mistake, man. I'm not even trying to do this right now. And yeah, it was just really weird. But yeah, Solomon's Shamir, and it's got a whole lure on it. Solomon was also an alchemist, in my opinion, and he was doing some alchemy. And I think it involved that thing, whatever it was.
Hey, does it influence your thought process at all about the Titan sinking? I heard Mr. Beast was supposed to be on there, and it seems irrelevant, but then when you think about the cultural ramifications of that, like the largest YouTuber right now, it's almost like the Seth MacFarlane things, like he got pulled off the plane before 9/11, or however you want to look at that. That's kind of disturbing.
Well, it alludes to the fact that maybe it points to the fact that maybe there are people who are put in certain places for a certain reason. And again, insert homunculus here, because a homunculus, it went from this crazy concept to the most simple thing. A homunculus could be a person who was part of a wealthy family, elite family, and their date of birth was planned to be this date at this time, such and such month, such and such place. Therefore, now they're going to carry their birth date, their birthday, as a sort of talisman, right? Maybe as a sort of nod, if you know, you know, therefore making them a homunculus. They're going to grow up and be a regular person, but then again, that occulted scaffolding, that the family plan for that particular person to then later be sacrificed on the world stage. I don't know. I mean, the Bohemian Grove, from what I've heard, they're not that secretive of people. They don't do weird stuff there, right? There's nothing to that at all. And I think that's also part of it, because I didn't think there was anything to it at all until people were like commenting stuff, and I'm like, yo, this person's full of it. Then I was like, I would look that up, and then when I would look that up, it would connect to something else, and I was like, here we go again, guys. So then, I take out my handy dandy notebook and I start to take notes, and then one thing leads to the next, and it spreads like wildfire. So I think that, yeah, if anything, there are homunculus running around in the higher levels of society, and versus like the whole NPC thing. I think that, because Crowley wrote about homunculus too in his book. He wrote, I think forgot which Liber it is, but one of the Libers. And he also wrote Moonchild, which is about a struggle between two different lodges, essentially fighting over an unborn child. And in there, he gets in depth about homunculus. And again, I'm sure it's just a fictional story, right? I'm sure it never happened. And I'm sure that he didn't make some characters in that book about him. And I'm sure that the opposing characters weren't his enemies from the Golden Dawn and all that stuff. I'm sure that none of that's in there. So again, I think that these people are messing with these sort of things, and they make movies about it. They use symbols. And like I mentioned earlier, the more I look at reality, the less I know what it actually is, what it consists of, and it's changing real time right in front of me. So from all the stuff I've read, and I was able to connect those dots with the Shamir and the whole thing, the Submersible, because I look at so many different books, so many different symbols, and unfortunately they get ingrained in my memory. And when I look at something, I can kind of sort of deconstruct it and like, oh, okay, that's what that means, right? And it's a gift and a curse, because I can't watch movies anymore. But yeah,
Dude, you're reminding me of my favorite character in the Matrix, and I thought about this for years. He's the guy that eats the steak.
Neo's a homunculus, bro.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like I kind of, I'm there with you. I feel your pain. Sometimes I just want to eat the steak. If you can, just put it away for a weekend, eat the steak, then come back.
If I was single and didn't have a family, no kids, I'd like to be eating of the steak, right? Because I don't, with kids and with family, it's like, do you want to, they're in this world where there's some dark arts, there's some bad people. Like, do you want them around? That you want to shield them from that, right? So I think that changes everything for me. But if it was just me, I probably wouldn't care and make such a big deal about it. But it's not just me anymore, and I'm sure if you have kids, you level up and you can't describe what that means unless you've been there and you give a shit about your kids. So again, I don't know how to describe that feeling, but it definitely changes your state of mind when you have a little homunculus of your own. And I think that's how that's probably how the alchemists felt too. They're like, I love you, and they want to, you know, hold their homunculus and play with it and teach it to do tricks and stuff like that. So yeah, dude.
Wait, Juan, I got a question. You said that the homunculus are at the high levels of society. Are you saying that only the higher levels have these homunculi, or like because there are NPCs, but you're not considering them to be homunculus?
I think NPC, like, it dehumanizes people. I don't think that there are people here just for texture. I think that there's some people who are maybe less smart than other people, if anything, right? Not to be mean, but the homunculus aspect is, remember, the whole thing about the homunculus is to acquire godlike powers, to use the homunculus for leverage in a magical sense. So we know that these families, they put their people in their companies, in these places. We know that they're, you know, the government is full, right? If the bloodlines, all these different things that we know, we can trace them back. They're all related. So that's what I mean by them being in these upper places in government. Maybe there's a homunculus right now who's not too bright in the White House. Like, who knows? Like, there's the truth is stranger than fiction. Okay. And when you see certain things, you go, okay. And it's not a coincidence that these occultists were writing about this. And remember, the same stuff that I'm reading, the same books that I'm looking at, these elites are looking at the same thing. There's a reason why all the monarchs and kings, queens, they had their own courts of alchemists to try and make gold for them. So what is to be said from that? That the government, the powers that be, want to also leverage this knowledge and use it for their own benefit. So again, I don't know what's going on, bro, but if I was to put my money on it, I don't like the NPC thing of like people just being empty vessels. Maybe they're not empty vessels and they're homunculus that were created for a certain purpose. Rinse and repeat. Use them up, throw them out, next one in line. We know that they're making entities now in labs. How long has that been going on for? They just told that, right? Just the tip at first, but they've been doing it behind the scenes for a long, long time. So what's next? Like, oh, yeah, such and such artists, they were actually artificially created in a, what's a test tube baby? I said Neo in the Matrix was a homunculus. He was created artificially and he was in a pod. He was grown in that pod for the benefit of the machines, right? That's a homunculus, right? He was able to break out of that reality, and then, right, we know the story, but he's a homunculus created specifically for that purpose. And that's what I mean.
So homunculus have soul, but have a soul. No. So how was he?
They're just empty vessels.
He was, but yeah. So how are you saying that Neo then broke out of this and acquired a soul, or like? What are you saying?
Welcome to the world of that's called the ethics of the homunculus. Some people said that God would infuse them with a soul. Some other alchemists would be like, no, demonic entities go into them. They're empty vessels until we say so. Then Crowley in the 19th century, in the 20th century, was like, hey, yeah, we can invoke a soul into this thing, but it's going to be a regular person, going to be conscious and grow up to be like a regular person, but it's going to have the essence, it's going to have the spirit of the great Scarlet Woman, and pick your elemental. So, and what's happening, bro, you have to understand that these magical systems evolve from the start. People start to adopt it and they tweak it to fit their needs, because magic is like the Force, right? Certain people, the initiated, the Jedi, are able to tap into it. But then when you tap into it, you can either be a Sith or you can be a Jedi. You can use it for good or you can use it for evil. The energy is there. It's how you're going to use it. So I think the same thing happens with this, whatever magic is, whatever that force is, you can either use it for good or you can use it for evil. And I think that some magicians were using it for nefarious purposes, and some other ones were using it for, I don't know how you would use a homunculus. Maybe to mow your lawn. Maybe that's one of the uses you can do. And by the way, I have a Homunculus Owner's Manual by Paranoid American, which you can get on my website, tjojp.com. And in here, we if you have a homunculus and you're having trouble getting it under control, we teach. There's 33 pages jam-packed of information here.
Whoa, 33 pages.
There is nothing to that, but 33 pages of that, and it'll teach you about your homunculus. And again, no homunculus guaranteed. So, proceed with caution.
Where can they get that?
On my website, tjojp.com, my website. And yeah, dude, it's the whole history of the homunculus. It'll teach you everything you got to know. And yeah, dude, I think that
do you think this homunculus idea ties into the gay agenda? Because it seems like what you're saying, homunculus will be created in a lab or in some artificial way. And it also seems like they don't, like at one point they want you just smashing all day, but then the other point, it seems like they want you just smashing dudes all day. And it's like, they're telling people don't get married, women don't have kids. It really does tie into like, we need less real actors in this world and more texture.
More NPCs. Or not NPCs, right? Because that's dehuman. More homunculi.
Dude, homunculi. I mean, I know you were gonna go there, but if you wanna go there, I mean, we can go there. But that was one of the aspects of the Crowleyan homunculus, where the Messiah, the Antichrist, the bringer of death, whatever you want to call him, was gonna be born from abnormal means, including being born rectally. And one of the things about that is that, again,
he was an ass baby.
Listen, dude, there is literature to support these claims. Okay, I'm not pulling this, no pun intended, out of my ass. Okay, there's literature I can back.
You're about the ass homunculi.
That would be demonic.
Listen, dude. Listen,
Nephilim shit.
I have something that I've dubbed sodomic time travel. Don't Google that, please. Sodomic time travel. And there's something about the eye. I mentioned the Eye of Horus earlier. There's something to be said about that. And Crowley wrote about that, how he preferred the Eye of Horus over the mouth of Isis, if you get what I mean. And right, I mentioned Paracelsus earlier. He also talked about this concept. There was a certain sect of Gnosticism that believed, again, there's literature for this, I'm not making this up, that inside of your beehole was a whole different world, a whole different dimension. And you could essentially impregnate yourself and bring forth. I wish this was not real, but it's a real concept.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. This is the first time I'm hearing it. I'm like, yo, go.
I just didn't know I had a whole dimension in my ass.
Well, dude. So again, the divine androgen, which is a hermaphrodite essentially, is part of the great work, is part of the magnum opus. So what I think is happening is I think that they're trying to quite literally transmute reality itself and bring forth, right, pull the celestial bodies down and destroy reality. And one of the things from that would include this thing that you're talking about. And Paracelsus also was like, listen, and I'm going to obscure this as much as I can. We know the church is doing stuff to, right, the little boys. It's like, let's go ahead and stop that. But we're not going to stop it because we got to save the little boys. We have to stop it because we don't want all these butt homunculi running around. Okay, so he's like, there's, again, literature to support this, where he doesn't even care about the kids. He cares more about the butt homunculi that are being created through what they're doing with these. Dude, right. So,
I'm making a new I'm already drawing a new t-shirt. It's going to be a priest just shitting out a baby. And it's going to
butt homunculi.
So stop the homunculi.
It's about that reminds me birth of the homunculus. Yes.
Oh that reminds me of the whole Lilith thing, right? Like Lilith, coming in the night, and then you have these, wet dreams, and then she's essentially birthing monsters, or I'm paraphrasing.
You see it in medieval art, the ass people that, right, the mouths. Yeah. Again, dude,
I see. This is what I don't understand, Juan. Is like, you're like NPC. That's a little dehumanizing, but ass people, I'm willing to go there.
Ass babies,
going deep.
It's an emotional roller coaster, really, and it's not my proudest fat. But like I said, I'm. That's why people gotta subscribe. They gotta subscribe, because we're doing the dirty work for the people. We're in the trenches. We're in, right, rectums too, I guess. And
we're in the ass dimension. We are in the ass dimension.
We are balls deep in this thing.
Yeah,
Yo, guys,
literally.
listen. We're up at an hour and a half now, and I think that we just drew out about as much as we can from Juan. We squeezed him like a rag. I didn't think that we were gonna get the butthole homunculi out, but goddamn,
I didn't think I was gonna
did.
get that one out too. But I mean, like I said, I can send you the receipts after the show, and you can read it for yourself. There's not something I'm
please
making
do.
up.
Any work
Please.
that you have about ass babies and ass dimensions, send it our way, please. 100%.
And where can they find all your other stuff too?
So usually I tell people, right, if you want to get the most out of the show, patreon.com/the Juan Podcast. Got plenty of stuff there. I post almost an episode a day sometimes, some weeks. And if you want to follow me, any major podcast platform, or Apple, Google, Spotify, whatever, tjojp.com has everything on there. I'm on YouTube, Juan Podcast. You can find me on there as well. I do censor the YouTube, right, before anyone asks, because we got to go where the people are at. The YouTube is mainstream, but you can't say the cool stuff. But I do have a Rumble too, fully uncensored. If you want to catch the video versions, the butt homunculi conversations, it's going to be over there. And so, yeah, tjojp.com. You can find all my stuff and anywhere, really. I'm everywhere and anywhere. So I'm here for a good time.
Hell yeah. Toplobster.com. But look, yo, Juan, thank you for coming and talking with us. We didn't deserve this conversation.
Yeah, you
No,
did it,
I
bro.
mean, like, on multiple levels, we didn't deserve this shit. I don't know. No, dude, we didn't deserve you to come on here, and we really appreciate that. Yeah, just thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, for sure. This was fun. Like I said, I'll send you some literature after the show so you can look. And I always tell everyone, I'm just a regular guy, and honestly, I research whatever I find interesting, but I'll get hung up on certain things more than others because, right, it's the nature of the beast. But I always encourage everyone to do your own research, right? Look into everything I've said, fact check it. Don't take my word for it, right? And do your own research and look into it yourself because, like I said, I think that the truth is stranger than fiction, and there's so much left on the table that we don't understand. And I'm just trying to, again, shed some light on what's going on in this crazy world. And this is just my take on it. So, yeah, take that I just present the ideas, and people can do whatever they want with the information that I present. That's it.
Juan, brother, thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate it. One last time, what was that website?
tjojp.com. Find everything on there.
Go
All
there.
right.
Peace.
Thank you guys for
We'll see you
tuning in to
next
Nephilim Death Squad. Peace.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade people that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, you got them. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening.